This is nature's fury unleashed tonight. All along the Gulf Coast, they've been forewarned. But how does anyone defend against this? Tonight, a close look at man versus nature as Andrew comes calling.
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
To put things plainly, this broadcast tonight will be about as unstructured and unpredictable as a hurricane. We know what we want to do. Indeed, we have a number of correspondents stationed this evening at various locations along the Gulf Coast of Louisiana, and a number of people who live along that same coast who have agreed to talk with us by phone. The problem is a simple one. Where communications are good is where the hurricane has not yet hit. Where the weather is worst, where high winds have started sweeping in off the Gulf, communications are being strained. Bear with us and we'll try and bring you up to speed on Hurricane Andrew's course, velocity, and power. And insofar as we can, we'll talk to people on the ground who are in the path of the storm. It looks at the moment as though the leading edge of the hurricane will be over Morgan City, Louisiana, in just about half an hour. Stationed at Morgan City, he drove in there about an hour ago, is my colleague Dave Marish, the first of the people that we're not going to be able to reach. I hope to be able to get to David just a little bit later. To the northwest of Morgan City, however, is my colleague Mike Schneider, who is, I believe, in Lafayette, Louisiana. Mike, it looks like the proverbial calm before the storm where you are.
They really sense that here, Ted, and they really consider this to be something along the lines of a worst-case scenario for Lafayette, because the blessing of New Orleans is the curse of Lafayette. The people here watched the hurricane drift along to the west all afternoon long, as I did too. I originally came down figuring that we'd do our broadcast from New Orleans. And we followed the storm as it moved along the west coast, stopping at Baton Rouge, and when it appeared the storm was drifting further to the west, we came here. Now the people here are watching and waiting, and there's a certain degree of anxiety building up, because the longer that storm stays out there, they know the stronger it gets, and ultimately they know it's heading, they sense, right in this direction.
Have people evacuated that area at all, Mike, or that far inland? And perhaps you should tell us how far from the coastal waters of the Gulf you are people essentially staying put?
We are approximately 24 miles from the coastal waters, Ted. As I point over the camera, that is to the south. That is where the Gulf is. That is where the hurricane is right now. The area of Lafayette encompasses somewhere in the neighborhood of 600,000 people. We are told that somewhere around 100,000 have been evacuated to shelters under mandatory evacuations. Most of those people are the ones in the southern parishes, the 3 parishes or counties, as you might have it, that are directly along the Gulf Coast itself. Others, though, closer to here also sense the danger. They've seen the pictures from Miami. They know how devastating the storm is. And not too far away from here is a dome stadium where somewhere in the neighborhood of 2,000 people are spending the night.
All right, Mike Schneider, thank you very much. Just to the southeast of Mike Schneider in New Iberia, Louisiana, is our colleague Mike Von Frem. Mike, I take it you're about 10 miles closer to the Gulf than Mike Schneider. Again, it looks pretty quiet.
It's quiet now. You're right. I should be feeling the storm about probably an hour before it gets up to Mike. I just drove down from there. I'm by a courthouse, Ted, that was built in 1939, which is really substantial. I just talked to the people that are running the civil defense here. They say that there was a voluntary evacuation, that most of the people in low-lying areas have gotten out of Dodge, but there's ample facilities for as many as 4,000 who haven't, when things start to get bad, to come in and take really substantial shelter. This area they make the oil rigs that are used down south that the people have been brought back on yesterday. They also grow a lot of sugarcane here. They do a lot of fishing. And right now they're pretty nervous when they heard Bob Sheets just a while ago saying that the eye of the storm could kind of skip across and go over Lafayette. They know that it's a bullseye here because we're just to the south of Lafayette.
All right, Mike Von Frem, thank you very much. I'm going to do something a little dangerous without having been told by my colleagues. I see a picture in one of our monitors here of Dave Marish, who does not look quite as comfortable as Mike Von Frem. Dave, it looks as though it's raining where you are. By your smiling visage, I take it that you can hear me. Can you talk back to me?
I can, Ted. I am on a seawall about 30 feet high along the Alachifalaya River in Morgan City, Louisiana, which is about 80 miles west-southwest of New Orleans. and in about an hour and a half is where the eye of the hurricane is expected to pass just to the west, which would mean this will be a very dangerous place because, as you know, if you think of the hurricane as having sort of a right front bumper, that is where the most dangerous winds in the counterclockwise direction are coming, and they should be ripping right through this town of Morgan City. Now, in the 80-mile drive that we made here just a couple of hours ago from New Orleans, we saw evidence of several tornadoes that had touched down, one of them strong enough to have picked up a pickup truck, swept it off the road, overturned it, and dumped it half submerged into a swamp by the left side of the road. So I think we're in store for a fairly violent night of weather here in Morgan City.
Now, Dave, I don't think you could hear the beginning of the program. I started to say that I know you had just arrived there really within the past hour. So obviously you haven't had much of a chance to drive around town and do any reporting on the town. But do you happen to know how large a community it normally is and how many of the people are still around waiting for the storm to hit?
We've been told, Ted, I would guess that the metropolitan area here in Morgan City is somewhere in the area of 80 to 90,000 people, and about half of them have left town. We did see several hundred people gathered in a school, which is one of the 2 evacuation centers in this town for people who didn't want to leave the city and would ride out the storm here, and it looked quite full. We could see faces in all of the windows of people sitting and watching this storm develop, and believe me, in the last 20 minutes they've had a lot to look at because it is really starting to blow now.
Tell us a little bit about the topography along there. One of the great blessings, and we can only hope that it continues to be so, is that New Orleans, which of course is below sea level, is not going to receive the full brunt of this storm. But what about Morgan City?
The topography is similar here to New Orleans. This is, again, very low-lying land right down below me, 30 feet at the riverbank level. Again, I think you're right at or perhaps a couple of feet below sea level, so that this is very dangerous territory once the water starts to flow here. It is flat land. I don't think that we elevated more than 8 or 9 inches one way or the other between here and New Orleans, and between Morgan City and the shore is a mass of bayous and swamps and low grounds, so there really isn't too much between us and the Gulf of Mexico.
All right, Dave Marish will be coming to you a little bit later in this broadcast as the storm comes even closer to you. We turn now to Bob Sheets, whom all of you around the country I know have been hearing again and again and again over these past couple of days. Dr. Sheets is the director of the National Hurricane Center, where he joins us now in Coral Gables, Florida. Bob, can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can hear you fine, Ted.
All right, velocity, direction, all the customary things that everyone is asking you. We all want to know the same thing. Where is it and how fast is it going and how bad is it going to be?
Well, I think Dave is going to be able to tell you very quickly, except he's probably going to lose communications because the eye wall is going to move over that Morgan City area here. As he was talking about, that's just starting now. You're getting the leading edge of that eye wall. We expect winds there certainly to exceed 100 miles per hour in that eye wall region.
Over the water, as the storm has been gathering up speed again, only a couple of hours ago, Bob, the velocity of the storm was 140 miles an hour. What's been happening to it?
Well, it's starting to decrease a little bit because of that eye wall is getting over land there, so it's probably dropping 10 to 20 miles per hour over the last hour or so, and so it'll start to decrease a little bit.
What about that tidal surge that you talk about all the time?
Well, that's going to be not nearly as much as it would if the storm were coming in from the south, because around the hurricane, the winds are circulating around the hurricane in a counterclockwise fashion, so they're not going to have a long time to blow that water ashore. So in that region, Morgan City and so on, maybe 10 feet, maybe 12. Of course, that's significant in itself.
And one more quick question as far as New Orleans is